Chapter 62. In the Canolaways, on the 22nd of April, the first point of Aries, it snows all night, 4 inches of it upon the ground when the axemen wake, and merrily begin to form it into missiles or stuff it down the backs of one another's breeches. Springtide. Mason puts his head out the tent flap and is caught in an intimate avalanche down the side of the tent. Dixon has his hat knocked off by a snowball and goes chasing Tom Hines round the cook wagon. I dreamt of a city to the west of here. Dixon tries to recall, scrying in his coffee mug, the wind blowing wood smoke in his eyes. At some great confluence of rivers, or upon a harbour in some inland sea, a large city, busy, prospering, sacred. A sylvan Philadelphia. Well, yes, now that put it that way. I hope you are prepared for the possibility that waking Philadelphia is as sacred as anything over here will get, Dixon. Observe you not, as we move west, more and more of those forces, which cities upon coasts have learned to push away and leave to back inhabitants, the lightning, the winter, an indifference to pain, not to mention fire, blood, and so forth, all measured upon a scale far from Philadelphian, whereunto we and our Royal Commission and our battery of costly instruments are but fleas in the flea circus. We trespass each day ever more deeply into a world of less restraint in everything, no law, no convergence upon any idea of how life is to be, an interior that grows meanwhile ever more forested, more savage and perilous, until, perhaps at the very longitude of your city, we must reach at last an anti-city, some concentration of fate, some final condition of abandonment, wherein all are unredeemably alone and at hazard as deep as their souls may bear. Lost creatures that make the very Seneca seem Christian and merciful. Chirpy today. Yet do I wish thee joy of thy dreams, Mason, and now the ones just before thou wake are most pleasant to thee, having myself by then been long awake from reluctance to revisit the horrors of my own, and so able to observe thee. How then? Do I talk in my sleep? Is that what you're saying? Oh, aye, but thou needn't worry. No one would make it out. 'Tis all another language. I'm talking another language in my sleep, Dixon? Don't see what the wimwam's about. Possession, that is, somebody else's soul possessing my body whilst I sleep. That's what it's about. Why, aye, whilst thou're away dreaming, that's what some would say, and others would add, what of it? Don't squint, ask the Reverend. Thou've a dream body. What use to thee's the solid one? For the time thou asleep. Here's some wandering soul who may have been centuries without sleep, who may have indeed forgotten what sleep feels like, who had winding sheets pockets to carry, might have offered pounds of gold for even a quarter hour's rest, and here thy body is, as an inn in the wilderness, heated, drained, provisioned, and but for a beating heart and a dormant brain, vacant. Surely 'tis only the mildest of inconveniences. Then tell me, Mirth, where might this alien ghost be, whilst I'm not dreaming? In what sort of humour? Busy looking for another habitation, I'd imagine. Apprehensive. Well, this won't do, will it? Not if thou feel this way. Here, why not have Captain Zhang round some day to stand just outside, listen closely and see what he can make of it? Too intimate. Half the camp hears it. Some take it for Indians. Axemen say, if so, 'tis a nation they have not yet encountered. Later in the day, as they emerge from a woodline, Mason gesturing eastward to where the encampment has swung into view, a flight of sail. Something waits directly in the path of our parallel, too sure of itself to feel obliged to come forward and meet us. And lo, what is to become of this rolling gypsy village we've brought with us? Late sun, early shadow in the tent riggings. Pots are clattering, kitchen smoke sucked out of vents by the wind passing over. None of this may be about either you or me. Our story may lie rather behind and ahead, and only with the transits of Venus, never here in the present, upon the line, whose true drama belongs to others. Darby, Cope, Tom Hines, Mr. Barnes, some new hire we don't even see. And when 'tis all done, I shall only return to Sapperton, no wiser, and some day wake up and not know if any of this happened, or if I merely dreamed it, even this very moment, Dixon, which I know is real. Oh dear. For a while, at any rate, it appears to be the drama of Stig, the merry axeman, with everyone else scurrying round out of sight, switching wigs and coats, appearing in the proscenium only when needed. And whom has Stig ever needed, as Mrs. Eggslap is apt to sigh, even in his hearing? But Stig, working diligently upon his axe bit, requires as near to perfect clarity of mind as he may achieve. It is this apparently single-minded concentration that at length draws the attention of Light Fingers McPhee, in the midst of whose rummaging through Stig's sea chest, Stig makes his entrance, axe in hand. "What is this?" he inquires. "Ha! What is this?" Brandishing an unrolled sheet of parchment, covered with elaborate seals and antiquated writing in some other language, possibly Swedish. Stig holds out his hand. "Give it!" McPhee gazes at the axe bit's shining edge, considering. "Indians!" he yells. "What does it mean, Indians?" Stig asks of an empty tent, for McPhee has zipped away. Stig roars and chases after him as they go kicking over laundry kettles, tripping over tent guys and causing tents to collapse, stopping at the commissary to throw potatoes and onions at each other furiously for a full minute, till in rides Captain Shelby's co-officer out here, Mr. Joseph Continuation Joe Warford, who detains them both. And after all have proceeded to the cook tent, has a look at the mysterious parchment. "Hum," Swedish, is it, Stig? Latin, Stig replies. Now then, Stig, out with it, demands Captain Shelby, or them yingle-yangling days is past and gone. Very well. I am here on behalf of certain principals in Sweden who believe that the Pens, being secretly creatures of Rome, took illegally the original Svasen land upon which Philadelphia would later come to sit, and thus that the whole metropolis has never ceased to belong rightfully to Sweden. What? Swedish Jacobites? Exclaims Dixon, sort of thing. Why, Stig! Amid the glitter of your great world, the flame of our cause may be easily overlooked. Yet it burns hotly enough that certain hands long accustomed to thievery durst not venture too close. Swedes have been here from the beginning, living among the Indians in peace, with no need to obtain their land falsely. Indeed, for Penn, Swedes were but another tribe of Indian, residing within his American grant, whose priority there he found no less irksome, which is why, at bottom, there ever was a boundary dispute, and these astronomers are come here at all. Stig! Cries Mrs. Eggslap. I had no idea. Why, you can talk. I'll go bail for him gladly, your grace. Surely, protests the camp lawyer, Mr. Barnes, if this be a Swedish claim, 'tis advanced in a less than timely way, sir. 80 years and more, kings have come and gone. How do you expect to fare in this? I am but an agent, sir, for a greater view of motive and interest beyond our own simple desire for justice. You might ask among your Jesuitic acquaintance. If that remark's about me, Dixon in full truculency. Gentlemen, ladies, cries the Justice of the Peace, must I read the Riot Act? I do so, I am told, most affectingly, having been compared indeed with Mr. Whitfield, though I take in far less in donations, of course. This seems to many a blatant request for a bribe, though others maintain 'tis but innocent joking. Now then, Stig, give us your account, man. Do any of you know, Stig inquires, what I have come down to you out of? The frost eternal, the whiteness abounding, beneath that all-night sun. In the Royal Library in Copenhagen lies an ancient vellum manuscript, a gift from Bishop Brynjolf to Frederick III, containing tales of the first Northmen in America, of those long winters and the dread miracles that must come to pass before spring, the blood, the ghosts and fetches, the prophecies and second sight, and the melancholy suggestion that the new continent Europeans found had been long attended, from its own ancient days, by murder, slavery, and the poor fragments of a magic irreparably broken. To enter the capes of Delaware was thus for me to pass the pillars of Hercules, not outward into the simple mysteries of an open sea, but inward, branching, narrowing, compressing toward an enigma as opaque and perilous as any in my travels. All day we ascended, and at dusk finally approached Philadelphia Irredempta, ceaselessly a clamour in the torchlight, headlong as if belief in a continuous arrival from the future, the Mesopotamian idyll of the Svansons, as vanished as Eden. One moment, I just need to check something. All is good. Stig can continue. As I stood in the hectic mobility at dockside, uncertain as to my next step, a foreign hand tapped at my mantle. A voice bade me good day, using my Christian name. I shivered, though I seldom do, ordinarily. 'Twas not a voice I knew, yet terribly I knew it well. Unprepared for any reception here, nonetheless I went with him through the unnecessary exchanges of counterseals and words that may never be written down and the like. I stammered some kind of thanks for having been met. I can remember no longer what he looked like. A closed carriage approached. "Hold!" cries Captain Shelby. "What is this? Elect Cohens? Bavarian Rosicrucians? Come, Stig, admit it. You're not Swedish at all, are you?" "Sir, 'tis for you to work out. Let us say that my people are of the north, northern and very white. So white, in fact, that you British to us appear as do Africans to you." He pauses, as one telling a joke pauses for laughter, but all are silent, puzzling how white that might be. Stig presses on. "The first thing we learn to do, however, before we even learn to fish, is to impersonate Swedes. For our nation much prefer to remain unmolested in return for sending south a few emissaries now and then, like sacrificial youths and maidens, into the sin-laden world, posing as Finns, Swedes, the odd Hungarian, a corps of intermediaries for hire, of whom I am honoured to be one. Working as an agent for Swedish Jacobites unnamed," Mr. Warford writing vigorously. "My contract runs for a year. By next year, Sweden, Dusky Ola, as we like to personify the place, may no longer wish to pursue his claim. Then I shall have to be an agent for someone else." His eyelashes stirrings of light, his brow pale and trackless as an Arctic shore. "No question I shall find work with some American province. After Mr. Franklin's success in London, colonial agents will be in much demand, as hard put to meet the standard he has set." "What I don't quite grasp," says Mr. Warford, "is how felling trees all day is going to help the Swedes take Philadelphia back." "Healthy exercise," replies Stig, "learning the pioneer arts, in particular the production of vistos. Ja, vistos to us may prove quite important, as the shape of a lance once held within it the shape of the tilting lists wherein 'twould be used, so do these Lancaster County rifles, with an amazing fidelity, create their own vistos of moving lead, straight as a ray of light for a mile or more. Quite terrible for the unfortunate squirrel over the next ridge-line, who imagines he has found safety." "You anticipate an armed attack against Philadelphia?" "Is that so fanciful? The Paxton boys nearly succeeded last year, didn't they? And those were Scots, Welsh, Irish, Southern races. Imagine next time a band similarly aroused of healthy Swedes." Should you be sharing their intentions this way, sir? Stig shrugs genially. Nothing is certain. Were the time ever to come, the continent should know. Aye, and you'll fare as well as Braddock did, declares Mr. Boggs, for there's no room for your European antics over here in the woods. Braddock's vista was not wide enough, declares Stig. Correctly prepared for and executed, techniques from the Prussian plains, where science and slaughter were ever fruitfully conjoined, remain unsurpassed. Tell him, soldier, adds Suja Jabor. If it's not fit for cavalry, it's not fit for war. The future's out west, not creeping round these woods. Bugs in your hair, notes Eliza Fields. Too much green in the daylight is grease in the candlelight, adds Patience Eggslap. Yet if it hadn't been for trees, I'd probably never have found Stig. Was I lost? Stig inquires. When? Terrain begins to get banky, as Dixon styles it. There are not as many settlements, forges, sawmills, or planted fields. The last market roads are crossed. The three between Antietam and Connaughahig, the Fort Bedford Road, and finally Braddock's Road, lingering, prolonged, gazing north and south, for whatever traffic there might be, each road abruptly, too soon behind them. They have entered that strewn and charred theatre of the late war, where Indians are still being shot by white men, and whites scalped by Indians, who yet pass upon their forbidden trails and watch invisibly from the forests. And there's no one who can tell the surveyors whether or not 'tis a district any more in reach of the Treaty of Paris than were Pontiac and his armies the summer before the surveyors arrived in America. Hickman, Gibson and Kellogg, veterans of Braddock's defeat, depress the spirits of the company with tales of that tragedy, of how the bears came out of the trees to feed upon the corpses of English soldiers, a defile of ghosts growing with the years more desperate and savage, to settlers and Indians alike. You'd not wish this line to pass too close to them, I shouldn't think. Do ye's damage, nods Alex McLean. Their last 10-minute arc segment, this time out, lands them about 2 miles short of the summit of Savage Mountain, beyond which all waters flow west, and legally the limit of their commission. They set a post at 165 miles, 54 chains, 88 links from the post marked west, and, turning, begin to widen the visto, moving east again. Axe blows the day long. From the ridges they can now see their visto, dividing the green vapours of foliage that wrap the land, undulating stump-top yellow, lofty American clouds are sailing above, and this day from the summit of Sidelong Hill I saw the line still formed the arc of a lesser circle, very beautiful and agreeable to the laws of a sphere, as Mason records. Yet, he confides to Captain Zhang, this unremitting forest, it disturbs me. Far, far too many trees. Consider, replies the geomancer, Adam and Eve ate fruit from a tree and were enlightened. The Buddha sat beneath a tree and he was enlightened. Newton, also sitting beneath a tree, was hit by a falling apple and he was enlightened. A quick overview would suggest that trees produce enlightenment. Trees are not the problem. The forest is not an agent of darkness, but it may be your visto is. Are we in any danger at this moment? Mason might be joking, but for an anxious undertone. Shah takes time to accumulate and accelerate, explains Captain Zhang. At this stage, only those of heightened sensitivity, like myself, can even feel it. But I am uncomfortable. May we move off the line a bit? To rule forever, continues the Chinaman later, it is necessary only to create among the people one would rule what we call bad history. Nothing will produce bad history more directly nor brutally than drawing a line, in particular a right line, the very shape of contempt through the midst of a people. To create thus a distinction betwixt them. 'Tis the first stroke, all else will follow as if predestined unto war and devastation. Wait, objects Mr. Dixon. It's as plain as pudding that Pennsylvania and Maryland are so different, that thy fatal distinction was inflicted upon these shores long before we arrived. Poh, sir, goads Mason. The provinces are alike as Stacy and Tracy. Except for the Negro slavery upon one side, Dixon points out, less mildly than he might, and not the other. If you think you see no slaves in Pennsylvania, replies Captain Zhang, his face as smooth as suet, why, look again. They are not all African, nor do some of them even yet know, may never know, that they are slaves. Slavery is very old upon these shores. There is no innocence upon the practice anywhere, neither among the Indians nor the Spanish, nor in the behaviour of the rest of Christendom, if it come to that. On June 14th, they stand atop the Allegheny Divide. From now on, any settlers they find are here in violation of Penn's and Bouquet's edicts. Here the party will cross, not alone into Ohio, but into outlawry as well. At last, running water becomes the underlying unit of measurement. Planets hold their courses. Constellations stately creep on. Napier's bones click in the surveyor's tents. And quietly, calmly, everything keeps coming back to water. How it inhabits the land. How it gets on with the dragon beneath. Mapped at last, Maryland is revealed as but a set of lines meant to frame Potomac to the west and Chesapeake to the east. Dry land is included, but the map is of water. Beyond the dividing mountain, Savage, the waters all run to the westward. Mason enters in the field book. The first of note which our line would cross if continued is the little Yokio Jenny, running into the Monongahela, which falls into the Ohio or Allegheny River at Pittsburgh, about 80 miles west and 30 or 40 north from hence. The Ohio is navigable for small craft, by the accounts I have had from many that have passed down it, and falls into the river Mississippi, about 36.5 degrees of north latitude, longitude 92 degrees from London, which empties itself into the Bay of Florida. This is how far one day at the savage mountain summit takes his desire, or his quill. Who sent you boys out here like this? There are about 6 of them. Some afterward will say 7. They are wearing hats made from the fur of raccoons, opossums, weasels and beavers, and holding long rifles with octagonal barrels, and packing a pistol or 2 each. Even the horses are glaring, all but carnivorously at the party. A dilemma. Say the name of either proprietor, and they are agents of the enemy. Say Royal Society, and 'twill sound like working for the king, who's even less popular out here than the Pins. Running a line east and west, Dixon finally says, for some gentleman who'll pay for something that looks good on a map. Lot of boys for just a simple straight line, ain't it? We could use more than this, suggests Tom Hines, perhaps not as aware as those axemen who have taken refuge behind the trees, how easily the visitors may be provoked. Lot of trees need falling. Ask the steward, Mr. McLean. It's 3 6 a day, and we'll keep you fed. For how long? Far west as they let us go. Could get day to day after a little. Hail! Sounds good to me. 'Tis your wife that's good, Lloyd. This is that damn proclamation line's what it is. No, it ain't. That runs the other way all along the Allegheny Ridge line. This is something else. Why are you chopping down all these trees? You're sure welcome to haul away what you need. This all right with Colonel Bouquet. Out here, the colonel would be a ruthless sort of chap to run up against. The hero of Bushy Run has his own plans for America, and a good many friends among the high Whiggery as well, as who must not in these times. His scheme is to tessellate across the plains a system of identical units, each containing 5 squares in the shape of a Greek cross, with each central square controlling the 4 radiating from it, though as to their size no one has agreed, some saying a mile on a side, others 10 or 100, Ohio and the western prairie beyond, presenting such enigma that no one knows what scale to work at. A prison, suggests Captain Zhang, settlers moving west into instant control. Dozens of such schemes each year, shrugs Captain Shelby, and they all fail. Bringing closer the day, replies the Chinaman, as if receiving instructions from elsewhere. When one of them succeeds. End of chapter.